What's going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, and we got two previews in one. Technically, there's three, but we're gonna wait until I can get Guapo in on the call to talk about AEW. But goddamn, we got a loaded weekend, do we not? We got Clash at the Castle, then we got Worlds Collide, then we got AEW All Out, which is quickly shaping up to be a dumpster fire, but we will talk about that at another time. Here tonight to talk to you guys about the NXT Worlds Collide show, and those worlds are more than just NXT and NXT UK, as we will get into shortly, and then we are going to get into what's a lot more fun and has a lot more possibilities coming out of it, which is Clash at the Castle over in Cardiff. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't start off pointing out that the NXT show that includes folks from the UK is happening in the States, while WWE proper, that is based in the States, is going to go over and do a pay-per-view over in the UK. It's kind of unfortunate that they couldn't link those two up, considering the weird times of the shows. Now, I don't know where you guys are in the world, I don't know what time zones you guys are in, but Clash at the Castle is at 1 p.m. for me here in Toronto, and the next night, Worlds Collide is on at 4 p.m., leaving us plenty of time for All Out, which puts the bullet in every argument from AEW fans that say, oh, Triple H is in, and he's bitter, and he's trying to get back at AEW, except there's no crossovers, so where are you going with that? They've still got Eddie Kingston on the card. I mean, god damn, the third best Eddie and the second best Kingston. I love that. That's going to be the thing for a hot minute. But let's talk about Worlds Collide. Now, you guys know, I'm only partially paying attention to NXT. I did watch the Heatwave show. It was good. There are characters that I like. We're going to talk about most of them tonight. But we also know that NXT UK is coming to an end. In fact, this pay-per-view coming up this Sunday marks the end, if I'm not mistaken, of NXT UK. So you've got one planet versus a black hole, if you want to talk about worlds colliding, and they don't have as many championships. It's not like Survivor Series. It's not like Survivor Series or back in the day when we had bragging rights before they took the bragging rights concept and put it on Survivor Series. But do you remember the one Survivor Series where Triple H brought in the NXT guys and it was sort of the third brand, everything was a triple threat match and everything was all good, and then you had to sort of, you know, make up for a title that was on one show and not on the other. And I think, well, I did watch NXT tonight, obviously, to get into doing this preview for you. Now, for the record, as I always do, you guys are going to be getting this on Friday morning. I'm recording this on Tuesday after NXT, so if they add anything, if they subtract anything to the show, either of the shows that I'm about to talk to, then you're going to have to cut me some slack. I mean, most of us have read the spoilers for SmackDown because it was pre-taped last week. I don't think there's very much to report on that other than people getting really, really excited about one person changing their ring gear. Now, if it's true, then cool, because that particular wrestler is a huge fan, or a huge wrestler that I'm a fan of. Not a fan of mine, doubt that he even knows who I am, but as a little hint, as a little Easter egg, you know, check it off your Spaz Phoenix bucket list, it's fine. But there's not much to report from SmackDown. Now, I do think it's funny that the Bloodline were on Raw this week talking up SmackDown that's already happened. That was kind of interesting. But it does leave us with a big wide gap between, as I say, recording this on Tuesday, the pay-per-views are happening on Saturday and Sunday. There is a wide gap for things to change, matches to be added, etc. If that's the case, then I apologize. If I miss something, then I apologize. This is just how my recording schedule is going to be this week, because things are a little bit all over the place. Now, I've talked that to death. Now, go and check out the very last episode of the Triple H Era podcast. You guys are getting this preview this week instead of a week of podcast. So the following Monday, not this Monday coming up, the following Monday will be the first episode of WWE Last Week, where we will be talking about Clash at the Castle and Worlds Collide and all the fallout from those shows in that podcast. So I hope I've made that clear. I've mentioned it over the past couple of times I've been up here to talk to you guys. If I've made it clear, then awesome. If I haven't made it clear, then I don't know, throw your questions down in the box below, or on Twitter, find me at SpazPhoenix or at SpazPhoenix1. Let's get into the card, because I've rambled quite a bit. I'm going to start off with Worlds Collide, even though it's on Sunday and Clash of the Castles on Saturday, just because I feel like being strange. I'm going to get this out of the way. Nathan Frazier versus Axiom in a 2 out of 3 falls match. If I've seen either of these guys wrestle before, I don't remember. So I don't really want to put it out there. Apparently they're both high flyers, which is cool. 2 out of 3 falls is a really interesting concept. 9 times out of 10 you get one guy wins, and then you go to the third fall. Or if you want to give somebody a super push, you give them 2 straight falls, and then the other guy gets to recover after the fact. I don't know, they set this up in a backstage segment while they were reading magazines. Don't really know what to tell you. What I will tell you is that we are unifying almost everything. Everything that has a counter on both brands. So the main men's title, the main women's title, and the tag titles. Now there is no corresponding title for the tag titles. There is no corresponding title for the North American Championship. So we've done other things with those that I think are really cool. But let's get this out of the way first, because they've all been sort of dancing around each other for a while. It's going to be Gallus. We don't know which. All 3 members of Gallus are in the graphic, so I don't know whether it's going to be Wolfgang and Mark Coffey, or whether it's going to be the Coffey brothers, or whether it's going to be Joe Coffey and Wolfgang. They just basically threw up a graphic at the end of the night, because there was a huge brawl. Because look at this great, gigantic division we have. And it's 4 teams, but that's fine. It's Gallus, it's Josh Briggs and Brooks Jensen, it's Pretty Deadly, and it's the Creed Brothers. Now, the Creed Brothers have their own, like, are we not separating from Roderick Strong and the Diamond Mine thing going on. Pretty Deadly are as obnoxious as they're supposed to be. Briggs and Jensen are all about one of them getting laid, and Gallus is awesome. You guys will remember when the brief period of time where I actually covered NXT UK on a semi-weekly basis. I really like Gallus. I don't know, like, they're not spectacular. They're not super creative. They're not, you know, doing 450s off of the balcony, and they're not, you know, telling in-depth, deep stories like some of the AEW sexuals like. They're just 3 hard-nosed guys that are going to come in and bop ya. And that works. That really works. If we're still at Imperium, that would be a lot of fun. If they ever come across Sheamus Butch and Rich Holland, that could be fun. But, you know, WWE doesn't have trios titles yet. The other part of this that's hard, or the other part of this that sort of lacks a bit of punch, is that the NXT titles and the NXT UK titles are both held by NXT teams. Briggs and Jensen and the Creed Brothers, Briggs and Jensen hold the NXT UK titles, Creed Brothers hold the NXT proper tag team titles. Now, Pretty Deadly came from NXT UK, but they are now part of NXT, and Gallus are the invading factor. So, the Worlds Collide element of it is not quite there. We got a little bit of a preview of some of it, with the Creed Brothers taking on Gallus tonight, and with Briggs and Jensen and the chick that's with them taking on Pretty Deadly and the chick that was with them. This is going well so far for me, right? But then they got a big brawl, so fuck it, let's throw all 4 of them in. This is where you kind of need a William Regal character. I know they got rid of William Regal and they just never really had a general manager after that, but it's really awkward to say, oh, there was a brawl and nothing was resolved, and then later on somebody just gets to awkwardly put a graphic up. Like, somebody does need to announce this stuff, and that's neither here nor there. But I mean, Triple H himself could be the interim, we love that word recently, do we not? The interim NXT general manager or something, because you've got Adam Pearce, and Adam Pearce is a character of comedy for the most part, but he does serve a purpose. So that's that. What do I think about this? I mean, Nathan Frazier and Axiom, I don't know. So I'm going to go with Axiom because he's got a cool mask. There we go. I'm going to say Gallus for the tag team unification, even though I don't think it's actually going to happen. I don't think it's going to be the Creed Brothers. I think Roderick Strong's going to fuck them over and then either go to the main roster or just fuck off entirely. Pretty Deadly are what they are. And It is elimination as well. Sorry, I didn't mention that either, because things are going well for me this evening, as you can tell. I think it is going to come down to Gallus and Briggs and Jensen, and I think Gallus are going to have whoever the third person is on the outside there to fuck with people. Oh, Tatum Paxley is the one that's out there with Briggs and Jensen. There we go. Thank you, Brain. So I'm throwing my vote behind a team that's probably not going to win. I'm going to say Gallus. The Carmelo Hayes one is interesting. And I have been following this on social media with him tagging Triple H, tagging the NXT, the WWE NXT on Twitter, etc., complaining about how there's no corresponding title in NXT UK, so he doesn't have an opponent for Worlds Collide. I'm the A champion. How do you not have an opponent for me for Worlds Collide? And I really thought that they were going to do the Heritage Cup thing. Now, I haven't watched any of the Heritage Cup thing, but I know that that's sort of their stand-in for a mid-card title, and I know that it was just picked up by Noam Dar. I would have really loved to see Carmelo Hayes versus Noam Dar. I thought that would be a very interesting thing, because for one night only, if he needs a valet for one night, if we can bring somebody back for one night, we can have Noam Dar accompanied to the ring by the beautiful Alicia Fox. But that didn't happen. But that's okay, because I do love what did happen. Carmelo Hayes came out. He actually closed off the Go Home show with his promo. So prominent sort of featuring of their mid-card title, which I think is really cool, which is a theme that we've seen with the new Triple H iteration of WWE across the board, giving lots of video treatment to both the both the Intercontinental and US championships. Now, mind you, Clash at the Castle does not have a US title match on it, so there's no competitor for Bobby Lashley on the pay-per-view in Cardiff. So that seems to have fallen down a little bit. But I will say, Carmelo Hayes, as I say, the developmental brand, mid-card champion, closing out the go-home show to the pay-per-view is a huge step in the right direction as far as I'm concerned. And he came out and he said, you know, it's pretty ridiculous that I don't have a challenger for the thing. You guys will not have the services of your A champion at Worlds Collide. And I got my hopes up a little bit because the crowd, and rightfully so, I can see why they would jump to this conclusion. A lot of the crowd started chanting for Johnny Wrestling because we know Johnny Gargano showed up on Raw. I was there in Toronto at the Scotiabank Arena. It was fucking awesome. And don't get me wrong, Carmelo Hayes versus Johnny Gargano, put that into my fucking veins. But instead we got an answer from Ricochet, former North American champion. And I thought that's just as good because he needs a boost of something. Because I thought when Triple H took over and he started getting featured more, he was going to be put back in the Intercontinental Championship picture with Gunther, which we know he's not. We know that part is going to Sheamus at the moment. So give Ricochet something on Clash at the Castle weekend, at least, and have him fight for a title that is, if he did win, it would be coming home to him. And he comes out and he talks about, oh, you know, you've done a lot, but, you know, nobody remembers anything you've done, which isn't true. Carmelo Hayes is fucking awesome. I thought I'd come back to NXT and give people a Carmelo match that they could remember. So, this is one of the few cases, and we're going to talk about another one in a second. This is one of the few cases where you can actually say that it's not an amalgamation, it's not a unification, it's just one champion defending their belt. And the boring WWE head part of my brain says, well, Ricochet's coming back down to do a favor for NXT. He's, you know, here's this, you know, great up-and-coming talent in Carmelo Hayes. Ricochet is somebody that can mold with him styles-wise very easily, knows exactly how to make somebody like him look good because he is somebody like him, and he's going to make him look like $1 million, and then he's going to go back to the main roster. But there's a couple of things that could happen here, because Carmelo Hayes, as I've been saying in the Triple H era podcast series, Carmelo Hayes is main roster ready. If he wants to come to the main roster, then he's ready. He has to lose that North American Championship, though. Now, if he lost it to Ricochet, and Ricochet held it for a couple of weeks and just sort of wore it around on SmackDown, like he could wear the NXT North American Championship on SmackDown and just kind of, you know, get it noticed to the larger audience. I mean, AEW fans don't want me to say this, but there's a good 2.5 million people watching SmackDown. Not that many people watching Dynamite because the show's falling apart. I'm going to stop taking the piss out of them in a hot second. Don't worry. Get some shine on that belt. Either lose it back to somebody else and have them lose it to somebody like Cameron Grimes in a couple of weeks, or have them do like another special episode of the weekly show, like, you know how they do the elevated episodes of NXT. Have him win it from Carmelo Hayes. Carmelo Hayes can do his own thing. He can, you can not tease having him do the rematch. You could have him come up and just start his career on Raw. And because I think the next big name to go to SmackDown from NXT is going to be Solo Sikoa. We're going to talk about that later. But you could have him take it off of him so that there's no problems in bringing him up to Raw. You can have him parade around with that championship for a hot second, like I say, give a little bit of exposure. That way, Raw gets Carmelo Hayes, and NXT gets exposure that way. It's like, oh, if this is the kind of guy that NXT is producing, then maybe we should check out NXT. And on SmackDown, you can say, okay, at least for a couple of weeks, Ricochet, if you like Ricochet, is an NXT champion. He's going to be on that show doing some stuff. Then you have him drop that title to somebody like a Cameron Grimes. Cameron Grimes gets to look like $1 million because he's beaten somebody from the main roster. And Ricochet has a brand new title reign under his belt on his resume. He can go back after Gunther and chase after his Intercontinental Championship. Everybody wins. That's a little convoluted, and I think the easy answer is Ricochet is just going to go in there on Sunday and just put over Carmelo Hayes, because that would be because then you don't have to think about moving anything. You've got Trick Williams in Carmelo Hayes' corner, so you can do it in such a way that doesn't even make Ricochet look that bad, and you can move on from there. I love this match. Low key, this might be the match of the night, or okay, I can't say the match of the night because the AEW show is on the same night. This could be the match of this show, okay? Everybody calm down. Now, speaking of titles that don't have a corresponding title in NXT UK, we gotta talk about the NXT Women's Tag Team Championships, currently held by Katana Chance and Caden Carter. Now, they had a defense tonight on the show against Ivy Nile and whatever, the chick in the mask that she's training. I'm sorry. The names that I don't know, I'm not even going to pretend that I know. It was a good match. I love Ivy Nile. When she hits her stride and they decide to put the machine behind her, that's going to be fucking awesome. I think it's going to be after Diamond Mine falls apart and she can actually stand on her own. But basically, Katana Chance, Caden Carter won that match after interference from Toxic Attraction, who are definitely still a thing. Katana Chance, Caden Carter gave them their respect, said, hey, we're going to fight you again later on down the road. But hey, since we don't have a challenger for Sunday, we're just going to host a party in the parking lot instead. And they're interrupted by Doudrop and Nikki Ash. Immediate response is the crowd chanting Nikki Cross, which I fucking love. Excuse me. Now, seeing as we're talking about NXT, people with histories in NXT UK as well, I really hope that they call her Piper Niven for the night, as opposed to Doudrop, because Doudrop is really fucking lame. But Doudrop, Nikki Ash, they sort of have a respectfully sarcastic conversation between the two of them. Basically, Katana Chance, Caden Carter are going to defend their titles at the show against Doudrop and Nikki Ash, and that's going to be a lot of fun, because not in a bad way. I love Piper Niven. Piper Niven is a badass, but Piper Niven is not a small person, or at least not a small person by WWE Women's Division standards. And the way that Katana Chance and Caden Carter are going to fly around the ring for her, I believe, on Saturday afternoon, is going to be something to be respected. Now, as I say, I hope she comes out as Piper Niven for the night. I hope Nikki ASH comes out as Nikki Cross for the night. Lose the fucking mask. We don't need it. It's fine. Again, do I think, now that they've just finished reestablishing the main roster women's tag team championships, do I think Doudrop and Nikki Ash are going to win the NXT ones and muddy those waters? I absolutely don't think so. But Katana Chance and Caden Carter are going to have a sort of a David and Goliath victory, and that's going to be cool. And once again, for Ricochet and for Nikki Ash and for Doudrop, for people who have no purpose this pay-per-view weekend, who have no place on the, on the Clash at the Castle card, this is something else for them. It's not something that's going to elevate them, but it elevates them in a different way, that they are seen as people that can go back down to NXT and elevate other people. This is very, very much a Dolph Ziggler type situation. Now, for the Unified NXT Women's Championship, you got Mandy Rose, NXT Women's Champion, who's awesome and underrated, and you can kiss my ass if you don't agree with me. Meiko Satomura from NXT UK, and they showed a brief video package on her that included her fighting on Nitro. So that's a thing, is it not? I really struggle with the triple threat element of this. The way that Blair Davenport came in, I spoke about this briefly on the last pod. The way that Blair Davenport was like, well, I sort of saw myself as the #1 contender to Meiko Satomura's title, but I'm here now, so I might as well be the #1 contender for your title. Who wants to put a hand up and tell her that it doesn't work that way? But she gets swept up into this unification match between a champion and somebody who thinks they're a challenger, which is weak. But at the same time, this match has a very interesting proposition of, like, her being... I know there's people that know Blair Davenport, or what's her old wrestling name? Is it Bea Priestley? Is that the name? Somebody correct me down in the box below. This match has the very interesting job of showcasing her as the newest talent in the title situation, while making both of their championships feel important, so that when they unify them, it ultimately becomes important. So I figure there's one of two reasons that they're doing this, right? When they brought Toxic Attraction up for the women's tag team tournament on SmackDown, they intentionally didn't include Mandy Rose. So that tells me that they don't exactly plan on putting Mandy Rose on the main roster anytime soon. So she's staying in NXT, which is absolutely fine. If it was a case of Mandy Rose was going back to the main roster, or Toxic Attraction were going to the main roster as a trio, I would say probably Meiko's going to win, and maybe she can be the unified title, because NXT UK has to get something out of this deal. But I've got a weird feeling that one of two things is going to happen, and they're sort of the opposite sides of the coin. Either Blair Davenport's there to eat the pin because they don't want either of these women to look weak, or Blair Davenport's going to get the win, and it's a huge push for her in NXT as the new unified women's champion. I don't know which way. I don't know enough about Blair Davenport to know that she's a person that would get that kind of push, if that makes sense. Now, I do think the integration of everybody else into this show tonight, into this go-home show, was pretty cool. As I say, Ricochet's going to be part of the pay-per-view. Doudrop and Nikki Ash are going to be part of the pay-per-view. Other people that will be at Clash at the Castle did drop by NXT tonight to lend some credence to their respective home NXT brands. Shayna Baszler found found Rhea Ripley. No, that's later. Shayna Baszler found Mandy Rose in the back, and you know, back when I was here, when I was running things, nobody questioned whether I was the baddest woman in the roster. And if you don't win on Sunday, there's always going to be a question mark next to your name, which is fine. And then Rhea Ripley, who held both titles, and I thought this was kind of cool as well. She held both titles. She didn't have a conversation with Meiko Satomura. She had a conversation with Blair Davenport, because Blair Davenport wants both of those titles, currently has none of them. And you got Rhea Ripley, who has held both at separate times, and she basically hypes her up, says, hey, this is your chance, like, make it or break it, go make a name for yourself type thing. And I thought that was really, really cool. Now, going on to the other match, we got other people doing the exact same thing, but like I say, I struggle with the weird makeup of this match. The tag team match, actually, is kind of the same thing, where you've got the titles that are actually being unified, and then you've got just other contenders there. But that makes sense, at least in the sense that all four of these teams have been interacting with each other for a few weeks. They didn't just come out and say, hey, we all deserve to be champions. If I want to make a prediction on here, I'd love it to be Mandy. I know that makes me the unpopular guy. I know that makes me you're just chasing a Barbie doll, even though that's such a retarded narrative at this point. It's ridiculous. I kind of want it to be Mandy. I don't think it's going to be Mako. Some people have whispered around the internet that this is her, maybe not her retirement match, but her stepping away from wrestling for a bit, or maybe pursuing some other things. So when I say I don't think it's her, that's not out of any disrespect. I don't know her work enough to disrespect her, so that's what that is. Any of the other two, like Mandy Rose, I'm a fan. It is what it is. And if she becomes the unified champion, then her girls get the tag team titles back eventually. Then Toxic Attraction goes back to running NXT, and it's fine. And if Blair Davenport comes in virtually out of nowhere, if you only watch regular NXT, she's virtually come out of nowhere and walks away with both titles. That's a huge push for a brand new star. And not that I have a personal connection, but that is a pretty cool gamble for them to take as well. And of course, the main event. If we're doing Worlds Collide, if we're doing title unifications, all you can really do is unify the NXT and NXT UK championships, and that's Braun Breaker versus Tyler Bate, even though I think they're pre-taping NXT UK and the tournament that crowned him as champion hasn't technically happened yet in canon, which is still very strange, and it shows that, you know, the shutters are already on that brand, and when it reopens next year as NXT Europe, it will all feel very pointless. Tyler Bate, again, bias on my part. I've seen the guy wrestle live a whole bunch in Destiny. Check it off your Spaz Phoenix bucket list. It's fine. Tyler Bate is going to be such a weird challenge for Braun Breaker, and I don't mean like in the fictional, like, oh, this is my next contender type of thing. For Braun Breaker as a wrestler who's still relatively new, let's keep that in mind. It's an entirely different kind of match to happen. Tyler Bate, I mean, he's stronger than he looks. He's strong for the size of him. The guy's athletic as hell, but he also does that weird UK Pete Dunne, break him down, joint manipulation, psychology type stuff. And I don't think we've really seen Braun Breaker in a situation where he has to deal with something like that or sell something like that. I like Braun Breaker, but I like Braun Breaker in the sense that Braun Breaker is really weird, and I like weird things. Somebody said to me, like, he's definitely a Steiner, but he's also got Warrior energy a little bit, and I don't mean any of the bad elements of Warrior or what led to Warrior's, you know, lesser days and all that sort of thing, but I mean just, like, the on-screen character, the totally, like, unhinged energy, if that makes sense. Obviously combined with the ridiculous athleticism and the intensity of both his dad and his uncle as well. All that comes together to make this really weird package. And Tyler Bate, you just know what you're getting. And being that even before there was an NXT UK, when they did the WWE UK tournament and we saw this kid, and, you know, who's this kid they call, like, the big strong boy, like BOI, which is always strange. I'm really looking forward to this match. There's a part of me that says I don't really care who wins. There's a part of me that says I want Tyler Bate to win because that would mean Tyler Bate was staying in regular NXT and we could see more Tyler Bate. There's rumors of Triple H sort of taking the 2.0-ness out of NXT and sort of making it a happy medium between his original creation and what it is right now. Tyler Bate would be a great guy to sort of spearhead that initiative. And once again, you got sort of, I don't know if you want to say pep talks, but like other people putting their 2 cents in for what their respective titles are worth. Bate has 2 different conversations at 2 different times. One with, oh my god, and it sucks that they have to use their new names, but one with Butch and one with Gunther. Just talking about like the history and the matches, and I mean, go watch Tyler Bate versus Pete Dunne. Go watch Tyler Bate versus Walter in, I think it was Cardiff actually. And when it was NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff, which was like the weirdest, longest name ever, and it was totally unnecessary. But to see him get pep talks from them, and to see Braun Breaker getting pep talks from, I say pep talks, I'm using that word loosely, just, you know, telling them, each getting told what the title on their shoulders should mean to them by people that decided what that title was going to mean in the first place. A little weird in Tyler Bate's case, since Tyler Bate was the first champion. So he knows what the title means. Now, Finn Balor and Tommaso Ciampa coming in and sort of telling Braun Breaker what that title means and stands for and all that sort of thing is great. Just with Pete Dunne, you got to kind of forget that the history of that belt was kind of made by him. Ridiculously cool. Like, they've pulled this card out of their ass. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me started. Don't get it twisted. They have pulled this card out of their ass. They had the UK people show up like 2 weeks ago. All of a sudden, worlds are colliding. And going into tonight, there was only 2 matches on the card. Now there's 6. They have pulled this out of their ass as sort of a curtain call for NXT UK. And if you acknowledge that and realize that, then it's fine. It works. It's really good. Now, for the ones that are not Worlds Collide matches, so to speak, I mean, I guess Carmelo Hayes versus Ricochet is NXT versus SmackDown, which is kind of cool. Katana Chance, Caden Carter versus Doudrop and Nikki ASH is NXT versus Raw. So if you really, really want to be loose with your definitions, it's NXT versus NXT UK versus Raw versus SmackDown. But that's more so that they could fill out the card, I think. I'm going to go out on a limb. I already said it once, I'm going to say it again. The NXT North American Championship match between Carmelo Hayes and Ricochet is probably going to be the match of the show. I'm just putting that out there, and that's not a dig at anybody else on the card. There's people on this card that I really enjoy. Chance and Carter, I like. Mandy Rose, I like. Tyler Bate, I like. Gallus, I like. Nathan Frazier and Axiom, I'm not really familiar with either one of them. You got a 2 out of 3 falls match to show me what you guys can do. I'll probably like you guys as well, because I'm a nice guy. The standout guy for me in the little brief bits of NXT that I catch these days is Carmelo Hayes. It just is. I mean, and Solo Sikoa, but he's not. He hasn't been around in a while because I think he's injured. Maybe? Question mark. Carmelo Hayes, Ricochet. Ricochet is probably more excited about this Sunday than he has been about anything he's done in a while. But yeah, that's NXT Worlds Collide with a bit of UK and a bit of SmackDown and a bit of Raw thrown in. Let's move on to Clash at the Castle. This coming Saturday at 1 p.m. my time. If you're in the same time zone as me, which is Toronto, Canada, as you guys know, then it's on at 1 p.m., which is fine because time zones are a thing. And it's the first big stadium show that they've done over in the UK since that one SummerSlam. Am I right in saying that? Man. Now, they've done the NXT UK takeovers over there. They did, what was it, Beast in the East? They did, proper NXT did Takeover London over there, but I don't think they've done a stadium show since that SummerSlam all those many moons ago. A couple of these are sort of self-explanatory, and a couple of these are just, excuse me, a couple of these are much more what else could happen. This whole card, and I mean, you could say the same thing for Worlds Collide as well, because you're unifying 2 different brands, and who knows what's going to happen. Who knows what kind of surprises Papa H is going to have up his sleeve for his black and gold baby. And we hope it does become the black and gold baby. Once again, do we not? But more so, Clash at the Castle is more about what can happen and what other outside elements are going to happen than the matches themselves. Matt Riddle and Seth Rollins. Matt Riddle got his name back. Hey! We did a promo about his wife divorcing him. Yay! Because, yeah. What can I say about Matt Riddle versus Seth Rollins that I haven't already said? Matt Riddle gets a bad rap. I think he got... he fell to the culture of social media and the court of public opinion, and that's kind of shit. Seth Rollins has dealt with the same in the past as well, but Matt Riddle is awesome in the ring. Seth Rollins is incredibly fucking underrated in the ring. And we've done the cool thing here of, hey, you wanted this match for SummerSlam, we've made you wait, we've teased it out. And much like Carmelo Hayes versus Ricochet, this is sort of low-key one of the matches I'm most looking forward to on the card. Matt Riddle's got to get the win, because Matt Riddle was the one that was quote-unquote injured to postpone the match, and Matt Riddle's taken most of the assaults and most of the beatdowns and all that sort of thing, and Seth Rollins is the bad guy, and also Seth Rollins is Teflon. You can beat Seth Rollins. You can beat Seth Rollins for the rest of his career, and he's still Seth freaking Rollins. You know, we can't go to TV 14 just yet, so I can't call him Seth fucking Rollins. But, I mean, we had some beeped out fucks on Raw, did we not? That was kind of fun, and Matt got his name back, so that's kind of cool, too. I don't know whether they've changed the listing on the WWE website, but I don't really care. What I will care about is literally what he's announced as when we get to Cardiff. It's going to be a great fight. Has the hold-off worked? Has the postponing made it better or worse? I didn't mind getting strung along. If you're on the other side of the coin and you think it's dragged on too long, then that's totally in your purview. Has it worked? For me, yes. I know it hasn't worked for others. I'll do a direct comparison, and I'm not even taking a dig because I like both of these guys. All Out on Sunday has Jungle Boy versus Christian Cage. I like Christian Cage. I like Jungle Boy. I'm looking forward to this match, but I was ready for this match about 2 weeks ago. And it has started to feel really, really dragged out for me, so I gotta be fair, I gotta be unbiased, as I always am, and I gotta say, if you're feeling that for this, then I can't really blame you. Now, I did say, before when I was talking about Triple H's treatment of the mid-card championships, I do find it really surprising that he's put all this effort into all of his mid-card championships and there's no US title match yet announced for Lashley on this card. Now, I would say, hey, we could have it added on Friday, but the US title and Bobby Lashley both live on Monday Night Raw. Monday Night Raw has already happened, but it does take out a big... If you let the dominoes fall... You've got no Lashley, which means you've got no Styles, because the Lashley-Styles sort of loose association has been dealing with Miz and Ciampa, which means you have no Miz and Ciampa on the card. Ciampa leads to, you know, all speculation of, you know, Gargano joining up with Ciampa goes out the window, which means potentially we don't have Gargano on the card, even though he just got back to the company. Now, if he was the surprise opponent for Carmelo Hayes, which we just talked about a second ago, I would totally buy that. Now, there's one other name in that whole collection of people. Sorry, my sinuses hate me today, so if that's becoming annoying on the audio, then I do actually apologize. There's one other guy that could be there still in a very, very different spot on the card, and we'll talk about him later. Now, there's no US Championship match, but there is an IC title match. Now, if this wasn't, I think I said this on the last pod as well, if this was a normal, regular, like a Backlash, No Way Out, sort of random-ass B pay-per-view in the States, more normal, at a regular time on a Saturday or Sunday, I think Gunther's opponent would in fact be Ricochet, and it would be him trying to get his Intercontinental Championship back. I understand as well, if you want to go to the other side of the world and you want to cater to that side of the world, I have no problem with that whatsoever, because it gets us Gunther versus Sheamus, and these guys are going to knock 10 bricks out of each other. That's it, that's all. Talking about the names changing and all those kind of things, I wouldn't mind Gunther going back to being Walter. I wouldn't mind Ludwig Kaiser going back to being, what the hell was his name, Fabian Eichner. Ridge Holland was always Ridge Holland. Butch needs to be Pete Dunne. He needs to be Pete Dunne. Now, the spoiler is, and I don't think this is too much of a spoiler, so I don't mind saying it, on the taped episode of SmackDown, I was about to say NXT because my brain's not working. On the taped episode of SmackDown, it is Butch versus Ludwig Kaiser, and Butch is back in the old purple-brown colored Pete Dunne attire. So if that's a step in the right direction... I don't know, nobody's really said, because I've only seen pictures, whether he's got his old music back. If they have him out there, as long as he's not wrestling in pants and a t-shirt like he has been, or pants and a tank top, like the past couple of times he's actually had a match, and maybe if we can get his music back, like leave the name, I guess, I don't really know. If we still had Marcel Barthel and Fabian Eichner with Walter, not Gunther, then Sheamus and his guys versus a still intact Imperium would be fucking awesome. I'm going to say Gunther retains here. Sheamus and Gunther, I mean, I said it before, and I'm gonna make the example once again back to the NXT show. If there's anybody that knows how to take somebody like a Carmelo Hayes and take that exact style and make him look like $1 million, it is somebody like Ricochet. Make the same comment here. The absolutely hard-hitting, like punch a hole through your chest style of Gunther. Who's gonna know exactly how to do that and make you look like $1 million? It's going to be Sheamus. And Sheamus is going to make Gunther look like $1 million. Hopefully he goes back to being Walter soon. We don't really need to talk about it. It's fine. I think it's funny that Walter did a interview recently, and they asked him why it said wrestler in his like Twitter bio or whatever. And he's like, yeah, I don't know about any notes being passed around backstage or about us being able to say wrestler or not say wrestler. My bio has always said wrestler. I've never said sports entertainer. And I'm like, who's gonna fuck with Walter? Really? Like, can you imagine back in the Vince, and I have to reiterate once again, Vince got fucked out of his job. That part of the story hasn't changed. But can you imagine Vince trying to tell Gunther or Walter like what to say or how to change his language and whatever, and like Walter would give him a chop and Vince would be dust. Like he would be old man dust. It would be like, you know, Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. Dust. Speaking of people that are gonna get absolutely destroyed, Liv Morgan versus Shayna Baszler. Now this is gonna be a murder. This is going to be a murder. Okay, yeah. I said Gunther's going to retain the IC title, did I not? Yeah, Shayna Baszler is going to be your women's champion because Shayna Baszler is finally in the women's title picture. Now, I was all for Liv Morgan winning the women's championship because she has a huge following that WWE just refused to acknowledge for the longest time. But even on screen in kayfabe, she was playing the underdog. Now, Shayna Baszler has been a different kind of underdog outside of kayfabe, where we all knew she was an absolute badass, just WWE wasn't going to let her. So, shoot underdog versus kayfabe underdog. I'm happy that Liv Morgan got that title. I'm happy that she got to carry it around for a bit. She's going to get destroyed. She's going to get destroyed on Saturday, and it's going to be just fine. And I'm sorry, like, I hate to be this person because I hate to look so far past somebody that I was so happy for not too long ago, but there's two main stories. There are two main stories after Baszler picks up that title. Step one, you have her have a feud with Ronda, because Ronda's going to address her suspension on SmackDown. There's another spoiler. But she's eventually going to get back in, and she's eventually going to want that title back, and it's eventually going to be, she's going to want revenge on Liv Morgan for taking her title, but if Liv Morgan's not the champion anymore, then we get a payoff from a couple weeks ago of that nod between her and Baszler, and then you get a Ronda Rousey versus Shayna Baszler feud, which is fine. Which is absolutely fine. And I say fine in the best way possible. It's going to kick ass. It's two women that have sort of done, I don't want to say the same path, but they've both done the transition from MMA to WWE. They both know what that transition is like. They both know the help each other need or don't need. They both know the workings with the ups and the downs and the strengths and the weaknesses of making that transition. So this is potentially Shayna Baszler's best match, and it's potentially Ronda Rousey's best match. The other thing, and I've been beating this drum for weeks, Rhea Ripley is part of the Judgment Day, which we're going to talk about in a second. Judgment Day has put her in a very prominent spot, made her look like a badass, sort of given her the China role of like just beating up dudes, mostly the Mysterios, because it's hilarious. But she hasn't, I know partially it was because of injury, don't get me wrong, but she hasn't really had any matches with the women. She's just been beating up the men. Now we need to translate the destroying Bianca Belair. She destroyed Bianca Belair in NXT for the chance to be the one that Charlotte Flair challenged at WrestleMania off of her Royal Rumble win. Remember the history of that, and now remember the history of Rhea Ripley versus Shayna Baszler. Have them both be champs. I've said this for weeks now. Put the title on Baszler, put the title on Ripley. Set them up for a match at Survivor Series, Make it the main event. That match, that Shayna Baszler versus Rhea Ripley match, was the main event of the episode of Triple H, Rock and Roll, Black and Gold, NXT that beat Dynamite. You do that match again. You do that match again at Survivor Series and you put it in the fucking main event. That's what you do. That's what you do. Because at least it's fun. At least it's unpredictable. Whoever you have Roman Reigns face, because Roman Reigns is still probably going to have both titles by the time we get to Survivor Series, so you're going to have to make up something else. It's going to be Roman Reigns versus Braun Breaker at Survivor Series or some bullshit, right? Or Roman Reigns versus Tyler fucking Bate. I just pictured that for the first time, which is fine. Whoever it is, Roman's going to kill them because it's Roman. So put this match in the main event. Shayna Baszler, Rhea Ripley, both incredibly underutilized under the big bad old evil rich guy Vince era, right? So punctuate the Triple H era, as I've coined it in the miniseries that I just finished. Punctuate it by taking these two underutilized talents, put them in the prominent spots they deserve to be, put them in the main event. That's it. And I'll tell you why. I'm going off on a tangent here for a second. Everybody's saying, oh, week to week to week to week to week to week. Oh, what did Triple H do for us this week? What did Triple H do for us this week? You can't. I mean, in the first couple of weeks, you could do that. I made a podcast mini-series out of it. Eventually, you can't do that. Eventually, you have to look for flagpoles. And I think here's your 4 flagpoles. This is just my opinion on this. SummerSlam was good. Triple H got to come in, make a couple of changes, but it was a show mostly set up by Vince McMahon. So you've got Clash at the Castle this coming Saturday. That's the first pay-per-view that's solely a Triple H pay-per-view. Skip ahead to SummerSlam. That's the first big 4 pay-per-view that's strictly Triple H driven. Skip ahead to the Royal Rumble. That is the first pay-per-view of a brand new year. That brand new year is the first year of a solely Triple H WWE. And then you get to WrestleMania, and that is the first WrestleMania season produced in a just Triple H era. So, first pay-per-view, first big 4 pay-per-view, beginning of the first year, first WrestleMania. Those are your flagpoles. Those, I think if you're realistic and you're logical and you're reasonable about it, those are the 4 points where you can judge what Triple H has done to the company if you're not already convinced. And if you're not already convinced, then you're clearly not paying attention. Now, Edge and Rey Mysterio taking on the Judgment Day. The Judgment Day is obviously Damian Priest and Finn Balor. I do think it's kind of cool that 2 out of the 3 members of Judgment Day were both on the NXT show to push the Worlds Collide event. That's a nice, neat little touch. But they were talking to separate people at separate times. It's fine. Now, have we seen this a lot? Yes. Of course we've seen it a lot. But there's 2 things that are going to happen here. One, Dominic's definitely turning heel because he's pissed off that his dad teamed up with Edge instead of him. And that's going to give them a 3-on-2 advantage. And I do believe, and this is going out on a limb here, I do believe that when Dominic turns on his dad and joins the Judgment Day, this will turn into another 3-on-3 match. And it will be Rey, Edge, and Ziggler versus Dominic, Damian Priest, and Finn Balor. Now, Judgment Day's winning because Judgment Day needs to win. Edge and Rey do not need to win this. Edge and Rey are much in the Seth Rollins category of their Teflon. Rey Mysterio doesn't need to win another match in his fucking life. Same thing goes for Edge. Same thing goes for Ziggler, to be quite honest with you. But it does continue this story that they've been doing where, like, the old, the long-term workhorses of WWE are all being mowed over by the Judgment Day. Rey Mysterio, Edge, Dolph Ziggler, etc., etc., etc. The other thing is, they need a big, strong win, and they need to use that win, put that energy behind Rhea Ripley in her finally pursuing Bianca Belair and the Raw Women's Championship to get to Survivor Series, where she will take on Shayna Baszler, just like she did in NXT in the main event. I'm willing this into existence. Now, another trios match. Yes, trios. AEW fans, lose your mind over it. I really don't care. Damage Control versus Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, and Asuka. Now, the heels need to win. The heels need to win. They are the new act. This is the newly returned Bayley, who we haven't seen forever. This is Io Shirai's call-up. This is Dakota Kai's reintroduction to the company. Excuse me. But also, they need some revenge after the babyfaces cost them the women's tag team championships. Aaliyah and Raquel is it Rodriguez? Yeah, it's Rodriguez now. Raquel Rodriguez and my hometown girl Aaliyah are your new women's tag team champions. And I see people freaking out about this, and that's fine. You're freaking out about it for the same reason you freak out about Charlotte, for the same reason you freak out about Alexa Bliss, for the same reason you freaked out about the Bellas back in the day. We get it. We get it. Go sit at the kids' table. The adults are talking. It's fine. Now, we do know the other thing. The other thing that could happen. The other thing I was worried about happening on Raw. We all know what that thing is. Triple H. Don't do the thing. Just saying. Now, a side rumor on this, and because it's in her area of the world and also because of her connection with Dakota Kai, rumors circulating around that we could see the return of Tegan Nox at Clash at the Castle, which I think would be fucking awesome. I think it would be really, really awesome. And I think it would be cool to see her link up with Dakota Kai and have Dakota Kai bring her into the heel group, because we've never seen Dakota Kai, or we've never seen Tegan Nox as a heel. Now, if they get the win, remember how Dakota Kai beat, I'm going back in my history here now, it was at NXT TakeOver Portland, where Dakota Kai and Tegan Nox had split as friends. They had the street fight that was awesome and still to this day is incredibly underrated, and it was ultimately won by Dakota Kai bringing in Raquel Rodriguez as the heavy to get the numbers advantage. Now, if they're going head to head with these three babyfaces and they're getting their asses whipped, and Tegan Nox finally sees the light, or sees the dark, as the case would be, and they get the win with the numbers advantage by bringing Tegan Nox back into the fold as a heel, I think that would be fucking brilliant. I'm not even gonna lie. If she comes back as a babyface, I mean, it's good enough. Like, her story, going through the Mae Young Classic, getting injured twice, being injured while she was in NXT, getting let go during the pandemic, I think. There's every reason to feel bad for her if she wants to come back as the Snow White babyface that she was. I'm absolutely fine with that too. Have her reinvigorate her feud with Dakota Kai. I wouldn't mind that either. But I'm so curious as to what a heel Tegan Nox would look like, because a lot of us never thought Bayley could turn heel. We thought Bayley was the female John Cena of NXT, and then she came to the main roster, and then she basically became an angry Karen, but she's better at it than Serena Deeb, so it's fine. We don't need to talk about it. Moving on. Damage Control win. They have to get the win. If they don't, it's promotional malpractice, as some people would say. Triple H, please don't do the thing, but also if you bring in Tegan Nox, that'd be cool. Main event. Roman versus Drew. So much of the story of Roman versus Drew is not about Roman and Drew, which is really, really sad. I want to revisit something I said last week. WWE is apparently getting new belts across the board. Triple H wants new belts across the board. Does that mean all the NXT titles are going to be new once they're unified? I don't know. Does that mean that the Usos and Roman are finally going to have singular unified titles as opposed to carrying 4 and 5 and 6 belts around? I don't know. I said it before. Your North American, United States, and Intercontinental Championships do not need to change. They really don't, in my opinion, because they're all relatively new. The North American Championship is gorgeous. The Intercontinental Championship is probably the newest belt and is not at all offensive. And the United States Championship, currently held by Bobby Lashley, who's not defending it on this show, is so different from all the other belts. It looks so much heavier. I know that's the only word I keep using to describe that belt, but it looks so much heavier than all the other belts, and it's such an interesting looking belt compared to a lot of the other ones. I'm not saying it's the best. It's definitely not the best. It's no Winged Eagle, but it is distinct. Shall I say distinct? That's a good word for it. Now, there's so many stories going into the Roman and Drew match that are just not Roman and not Drew. I don't know how else to say it. I am 99.9% sure that Roman's walking out. if this is just the two of them going at it with no fuckery and none of the additional stuff that I'm about to talk about, Roman's definitely winning. Put in some of the fuckery that I'm about to talk about, and that's all the fuckery combined gets me that 0.1% possibility that Drew McIntyre could leave with a title, or they'll do something weird to split them, which that's not a conversation I want to get into because it's stupid. But Roman's facing Drew in the main event for the WWE Unified, Universal, Undisputed, Galactic Championship, whatever the long title is that they're giving it now. Now, in addition to that, you got Karrion Kross, who's just come back to the company and set his sights not on the champion, but on Drew McIntyre, which is very interesting. I'm not setting my sights on the champion, I'm setting my sights on the guy that I don't think deserves to be the #1 contender. That's an interesting take. Sort of out of the blue, you've got the newly reinvigorated prize fighter Kevin Owens setting his sights not only on Roman Reigns, but on getting his old friend away from the Usos, which is kind of cool. Karrion Kross does not have a match on Saturday. Kevin Owens does not have a match on Saturday. Theory does not have a match on Saturday, but he is still carrying around that Money in the Bank briefcase. We do have the very fractured story between Sami Zayn and the Usos. Is he going to come to blows with Jey Uso? Is Jimmy going to jump in? Is Kevin going to come and defend Sami and all those other things? And if you want to talk about strengthening the bloodline, there is the rumor out there. I read it on No DQ. I don't know whether that's their story directly or whether they've aggregated it from somebody else. But the rumor is that Solo Sikoa, who has been out with injury, when he comes back, will be on the main roster with the Bloodline. Could this be the night that he comes out to join the Bloodline? We do not know. Also, the Usos will be nice and fresh because they are not defending their unified WWE Tag Team Champions on this night either. Now, you got a very interesting story here because there's only two ways they can go with the Usos. Either we're going to get DIY back together after Gargano shuts up Theory, or we're going to put Sami and Kevin together. Kevin's going to pull Sami away from the Bloodline, and that match is going to happen. Or you get a triple threat. That's something for another day. But Kross, Owens, Theory, Sami, Solo, the Usos, potentially DIY in the background, even though that's something I'm basically making up. There are so many outside elements of fuckery here that I think WWE would use to protect Roman Reigns in a loss. All of them combined give me a 0.1% chance of Drew maybe leaving for a title on his side of the world. You know, in his home country of Wales, except not really. But by all measures of logic and magnitude, Roman Reigns smokes Drew McIntyre, and somebody else steps up. Maybe you get Owens, Sami Zayn, and Karrion Kross taking on the Bloodline. Who the fuck knows? Anyways, I have rambled on for quite long enough. I'm very tired. It's very warm in here where I'm recording. And I'm also losing my voice, as you can probably tell. So, that's NXT Worlds Collide. That's WWE Clash at the Castle. I will be coming up. I mean, this is all going out Friday, so if I do get the preview for All Out done, you will be getting it later today. Hopefully with Guapo, if not by myself, but I wasn't going to preview 3 shows in one shot. That's a little bit much, even for me. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys are looking forward to at Clash at the Castle. Let me know what you guys are looking forward to at Worlds Collide. Let me know what surprises you think are coming down the pike. Till then, I've been Spaz, your YWC Reality Check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation. Keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I will talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, this very, very tired fella is tagging out. Bye, guys.